All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we have 5 members here present. We'll roll call first. And start with Deborah. April. Here. April. Here. Sandy no longer with us, so April Edwards. Here. Beth Alden. Here. And Linda Fugate. I did not hear Linda. I looked at my email. I was out of office last week. So, but Kristen just checked. I think our charter says that with 5 members present, we can proceed with the meeting. So we have 5 members present. So we will go ahead and get started. And do we have anyone on the phone with us? Beth, are you on the line? I'm sorry. Linda, are you on the line? I know. Okay, she's not, so hopefully, normally she's here before we walk in the room, so we'll go ahead and get started. First thing that we're going to have, we'll have Kristen give us a review of the minutes, and then we'll ask for approval and adoption of the minutes for our records. So.
Good afternoon. The minutes from the last meeting are in your booklet. I'll kind of quickly walk through and then call for a motion to approve. We'll start with welcome and introductions. 6 of 7 advisory board members were present. Ed Royals was not present on vacation. Other DHS
Slacker. A very important national meeting.
You can see other members from DHS&B that attended as well as visitors. There are sign-in sheets circulating. That's a little bit of a sidebar, so please make sure that you sign in so that we can capture attendance accordingly. The meeting was called to order at 1:00 p.m. The meeting on the 11th was our 3rd advisory board meeting. Reminder that this meeting is public. Terrence also announced new positions that joined the O&M team. You all approved the minutes from July 14th, 2015. Next, IB&B provided an update using the monthly assessment report from June 2015. He discussed the state of our deficiencies, our overall program and risk state, etc. Next is the Motorist Phase 1 program update. I gave an update from the House and the Senate legislative staff. Particularly, they requested a way for us to share documents with them. Some things were getting lost in translation with email, and so they wanted a central point of reference for our documents associated with the program. So we have set that up. You all are encouraged, if you'd like to have access to that site as well, to just let us know and we can do that. Next, the overview of the Executive Steering Committee approved changes. Wendy Lane reviewed change request number 1 that was approved by the ESC that had some schedule modifications and some date shifts. Terrence highlighted the number of requirements that were associated with Deliverable 12. And that's it in that section. Under project deficiencies, I gave a specific update on where we were with addressing the 9 deficiencies identified by IB&B. At that time, we had successfully closed 1 deficiency, so I'll be very pleased to give you an update on this meeting. The requirements update and requirements validation, Terrence and the BA team provided an update on Deliverable 12 as well as where we were with the requirements validation process. Contract amendment status, at the time we were referred to a draft contract amendment that we were performing with Accenture. We had approved a change regarding some of the legal language and terms. There was also an impending change associated with the fiscal year 2015-16 deliverables that was in work at that time. On the last page of the minutes, include policy review as we go through the document with the green columns as well as the document with the blue that we took back to the ESC. We provided some updates in that section. The meeting adjourned at 3 o'clock on the dot. And you can see the handouts that were distributed to all members on the last page. Any questions, comments, concerns about the minutes? Anyone like to make a motion to
I'll make
approve?
a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kristen. A couple things before we get into the meat of the agenda. Last week, some members of the team attended the tax collectors education forum down in Orlando. I went, Judy was there, Jessica, I think it says all of us over here now. The meetings, we provided an overview of pretty much a lot of the information that we provided for you already. Of course, we talked about two of the other systems that we work on now for the electronic filing system and our capture application. But for Motorist Modernization phase 1, we gave them an overview of driver's license issuance. We didn't do syphilis, but we gave them an overview of the new portal system. We did it as well for the renewal system. So things went well. They had a good number of questions, mainly centered around, I guess, sort of questions around portal. I don't think we had any questions around the new driver's license issuance system and the things that we were planning there. And I had to go give an update to the IT coalition. I don't know about renewal. Were there questions about renewal?
Yeah, just about the ones that we were gonna be printing in-house and how we were gonna determine the out-of-state customers.
And Jessica didn't really give them an opportunity to ask questions about driver's license issuance.
That's because I told them everything they needed to hear.
Jessica was a bit nervous, and I told people that before she got up there. And afterwards, when she finished, I said, she got ready to sit down. And I said, Jessica, before I asked her, and she goes, any questions? No, they're good, Tara. They like it. Literally sits down after that. They're all like,
But they were applauding.
I think they saw the surprise look on my
So now
face.
you know who needs to do all the presentations.
I couldn't believe she did. They're good, Tara.
Your turns. They liked everything I said.
But also, we also presented the same type information last week as well, wasn't it? To the DOR training for the tax collectors who went out, did a presentation there, had a few questions. I think the only tax collector that was in the room was the tax collector from Orange County. They had a couple of questions about things that we're planning for portal. So there are already questions about the some of the functionality that we plan to offer via the portal. The other important meeting I want to update you on is also last week, or the week prior. A good number of us went downtown. Pretty much everybody, Judy wasn't there, but Jessica was, Kathy wasn't, but we went downtown to give a project update to the legislative staff. And the meeting lasted about an hour, and we gave them an update on where we were with all of the project efficiencies. Gary Video from Ernst & Young was there. He gave an update, and the meeting went well. They seemed to appreciate the fact that we came down there to give them an update. I think they seem to be appreciative of the progress that we've made with all of the deficiencies. And I think hopefully you all will be as well once Kristen gives that update. We have some other documents here, the spend plan that we're going to share with you later that Janice in the back did that has completely made things a lot easier for them to follow, to understand that we're planning to spend money, so we can give you an overview of that. But that meeting went well. We even got a thank you email from police from downtown, Ms. Lofton, saying for the job that we had done, that's worth presenting the information. So hopefully we can keep that up, and that's because these folks have done a very good job of getting documents updated and sharing things with them, and so we're pleased with the outcome of that meeting. Any questions about those two meetings, the tax collectors meeting, any of that? Okay. All right, so the first thing that we're going to have is Wendy, I believe, is going to give an overview of some of the schedule changes. I think these are ones that are already been presented to, these have not been presented to the ESC yet. So we'll get to see first, and your thoughts, and we'll of course take those thoughts and your recommendations to them as well.
So if it's okay, I'm gonna stay right here and walk through the items with you.
That's
It's great. There should be a copy of the change request. It's a separate handout for you.
Yeah. You got it?
So everyone got a copy. So what I wanted to walk through today with you all is similar to what I walked through before. I was prepping you guys last time when we met to talk about the changes that would be coming because we were updating the schedule based on revisions to the contract amendment, which I think Janice and I will both speak to in a little bit, and then also we were updating the schedule for with our LBR request for the fiscal year 16-17. So the first item you'll see here in the master schedule change request that we have. And again, these changes are pending ESC approval, so just so you know. One of the first items we had to make revisions to had to do with our lessons learned deliverables. They were a little bit out of whack with the overall program schedule and as far as what we needed from Accenture in the order of the program events. So we've readjusted that per a memo with Accenture, and you'll just see here, these are the updated items that are part of that schedule. The prior finish dates for these, for example, we've pushed the finish dates for deliverable 8C and deliverable 8D. Those were originally due on September 3rd, both of them at the same time, so obviously that was somewhat of a snafu on my part as far as that the scheduled dates. So we were able to amend those. If you look at the second item, a little bit further below, where we talk about, this is really the meat of the updates to this overall schedule. So this is in concert with the contract amendment, which is actually in your booklet that you've got here. Let's see what page it's on. I think it's immediately following your cue. It is. So immediately following the slide with the cues on there, this will give you the full information on the contract amendment. And what I've done here in this change request, just so you're aware, this is pulled out, and I did this in actual deliverable order from deliverable 20 to 46, because we have a total of 26, 27 items that we had that were included and updated as part of the overall program schedule.
And the 20 to 46 are all the new
New deliverables.
deliverables for this upcoming, for this year, this fiscal year.
And the finish dates that we've included here, this is the actual completion date and approval and acceptance date by the department. So we have included the review cycles in the overall schedule. All of that has been included. We have additional tasks and line items, which you don't see obviously in this schedule here. But the overall schedule has been completely re-baselined with this information pending approval by the ESC. So
These are changes that are already incorporated in Amendment 3.
yeah, these are all, everything here is taken directly from that contract amendment.
That's what you said.
The third item, which is on page 3, due to basically reworking some of these items and because of the changes that we had from that contract amendment, there were a few line item tasks that changed and have been amended for logic purposes, if you will, in the overall schedule. And I just made a list of basically those sections or areas that were going to be changed. And so that included some of the replication tool, the procurement for that. It included our Team Foundation server configuration and also some of the activities under the Development Foundation support shifted because we're not doing development in this fiscal year.
The sub, I guess, I'm not sure what your technical term is, but on these different changes, the parts that are in blue, the light blue, which I guess was sub
They're key milestones out of the schedule.
within the point of those is just simply they're part of the overall deliverable. They will be done sometime in that time frame.
Yeah, they're part of the schedule, they're kind of categorized, if you will, so the ones that relate to organizational change management should extract it out of the schedule. The deliverables that directly correspond to security should extract it out of the schedule.
Right.
But these numbers should be all of the 15, 16 deliverables that were adjusted as a part of the contract.
I get that. I'll just cut to the chase. The sub milestones all have 0 days. Their start date and end date.
Yeah, and
Which is
Right,
Just-
yeah,
so
because
the point is
these
that you listed them there
Yeah,
for
so
educational
sorry.
purposes.
you don't see the
Yeah.
detail.
And that's all, and that's the only reason, which is fine.
Okay.
Sorry,
I get that.
confusion, I was confused, I was like, what?
No, I did not articulate the question, in fact, I'm not sure I even asked the question.
Yeah, I should have clarified, these, because they're key milestones, they're considered a 0 day because it's an acceptance of that deliverable, so all of the tasks and information are spelled out actually within that time period that's actually in there.
And I know that, but when you asked the question, I went,
Yeah, just to give you an example,
Right, but the reader, I mean, us over
Right.
here,
Right,
well,
right.
know
so when you see the start
it's,
date,
I think it meant magic.
right? Yes, it's like, we're gonna do nothing for 0 days on the,
Right.
so you get there, and all this pops
no,
out.
no,
Yes.
that's a good question, though, that's definitely a valid question. So when you see, for instance, that's why I have like the heading there at the top, you'll see technical requirements validation that begins on 8/12. That's the activities as part of that overall
Right,
summary.
they'll all get
process.
done sometime in that
Right.
range, but we're all gonna be different times, different days, so on and so forth.
Are there any other questions with regards to those milestones and how they correspond to the actual amendment? It should be, the intent with the labeling in the schedule is to make sure there's a 1-to-1 ratio to all of the deliverables in the contract amendment, so it should be easy for you all to look and see, and go, oh, that's deliverable 20, this is this. And to walk through some of that too, just to give you a little bit of an idea, I don't know, Janice, if you want to come up and pipe in on any of this. The deliverables are spelled out in the contract amendment in detail, so that will give you a little more high-level overview. But the requirements validation piece, I think everyone was aware we were going to be detailing that and, you know, adding more task level information that goes with each of those. But in addition to that, we had the organizational change management items, which were added as a result of the ID&D deficiency report. So you'll see in that very beginning there, we have deliverables 20, 21, and 22 are all part of organizational change management. And I don't know if you have anything to add or change or.
Not on those, I mean, the LDs, liquidated damages did increase for those 3 deliverables because they are so large. So that's the only difference between last year's and this year's.
Yeah, I think one of the big items that Ernst & Young, I think there was a deficiency actually just related to the organizational change management. So what we decided to do was, since Accenture is on board doing the other work for us, we decided to add that as a deliverable from Accenture. However, somebody's going to be working very closely with their resource, which is actually on his way into the office today. I don't know if you made it here. So he's here. So she's going to be working with them, and that is a deliverable that Ernst & Young has said we definitely need. For instance, I mean, there are things we know already that are going to change because of modernization. What does that affect? What we're planning for? There are going to be new groups that are created. I know, you know, we've talked about, even in ISA, about having people dedicated to update, you know, like blueprint requirements. How do we keep that stuff updated? What are those changes? What are the changes for the employees as we move forward? So that is a pretty big lift in the project. They're going to be doing that, working hand in hand with somebody as part of her responsibilities as well. So she's going to be like the agency's representative working with Accenture.
So we were trying to follow breadcrumbs, think we about found ourselves.
Okay.
I just picked one, my D&D portal on the handout is deliverable number 29. You can go to the table, number 29, and it references you to, I still haven't found section D, but I found T. And T is over here in increment 1.
Section D is going to be in the original scope of services contract, and I don't believe that's attached to it.
Okay, so the D is in the original.
Correct.
Right. So if I wanted to know that deliverable 29 is going to get done sometime by June 27th of 16, because it's part of that 4.3.
Right.
That means everything on T, on page 4 of the amendment, is all the functionality that's going to be worked, that we will be addressing. Well, validate the requirements for these, validating the requirements for these things on this list. Am I reading that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry.
It made you dizzy too.
It's just like.
So yeah, I follow 29 to here to here to get the language I would understand, which is, I know what an ID card renewal is, I know what a driver license replacement is. We're gonna make sure we have we're gonna validate all the requirements for those 16 items. They will be in deliverable number 29, which will be done by June 27th of 16. Am I reading that one right?
Yes, correct. And to give you an idea too, we actually have in the detailed schedule, which I can always provide to everyone at the next meeting if you'd like, the detail within those actually has all of the breakout of all the different functional areas that are gonna be tackled as part of that deliverable. So.
I
I
do
know it
wanna
might be
make sure.
overkill,
Read what
it's
I've
just
got.
like,
You said deliverable 29 in June? It's
It should be
November,
November.
yeah, November 20th.
Well, yes, and I saw the November 20th.
Okay.
Just didn't work.
It'll be, it will, yeah, that will be done November 20th, but the overall deliverable, or excuse me, the overall,
everything for my DMV will be complete on 6/27.
right, but that portion of it, yes.
Right.
Sections.
So then what milestones kind of has us.
Right, the different milestones actually represent different functional areas that are gonna be tackled as they move through.
I mean, you are correct, it'll technically, these will be
That
done
section,
by,
right.
yes, but the whole thing
Yes.
would be, right.
What?
Any other questions? Check, we may have a mistake here.
No,
Okay.
you're fine, she and I were trying to make sure we could follow
We want to make sure we.
From this because it really, what, the part of this process that I understand, I like the words. The words that say things that I'm familiar with, and knowing, okay, so when's that gonna be done? That's what I was trying to get to.
And one other thing that we're doing as well, we are creating, kind of scoping out everything that we need to do the rest of this fiscal year that would involve procurement and legal. We have our timeline, so we're going to have a meeting with your staff to kind of walk through that and make sure it's all doable. There are a number of requests for information, RFIs that we have to do this year, I think 3 that we need to do. So we have a lot of
By June
writing.
30,
Excuse me?
by June 30 or by December 31? When you say this year,
I'm sorry,
year or
fiscal year.
Fiscal year, sorry.
So, yeah, so we mapped that out, how long we think it's gonna
I was gonna
take.
say, we're gonna have to talk later.
Okay.
If you're talking December 31.
No, so we've already mapped out how long it's gonna take us to write them, and then hopefully we have enough time for your staff, and we're gonna think that we're gonna meet with Lisa and your team and just sit down and make sure that we're all on the same page, and then whatever time we get factor into legal, so we do have those on that. I think somebody created the calendar for the rest of the team. We had a meeting with Diana, and we were also, she's looked it over and just want to make sure everyone else is okay. So we'll be scheduling that meeting sometime soon.
It's scheduled on Thursday,
Thursday? You know what time?
4:00.
4 o'clock Thursday? Okay, and we'll go through that. Any other questions about the contract?
Do you want to go over the spend plan since it's all?
Sure, you want to get review now? Just kind of-
Basically, if you look at the spend plan, it follows the same
Everybody have,
line
We'll share.
the contract amendment. So Stephen, as you said, okay, this section goes to this section, that goes to this, same thing here. We numbered the spend plan, so on the left-hand side, you can actually see the deliverables, they're numbered, so you can see which number it is. The total amount for this fiscal year that we're expecting, that deliverable is actually being paid for. And then as you go out to the right, it's budgeted in the months that we expect that acceptance. So we're trying to make it a little bit easier for downtown to see. Last year, I think it became a little bit confusing as far as when it was actually budgeted versus when it was actually expended. And it caused some confusion. So they asked us to provide a more detailed spend plan this year. And they also are asking for base budget. So that's something we're trying to obtain. So
Right, so you've tied these to the deliverable dates.
that's correct.
So your March deliverable 29 has the November 20 date, and you place that in November on this page.
That's correct. It probably won't be paid until the next month, but it will show acceptance without
No, I would
using
have done
no
this
that
one
month.
too, that's perfectly reasonable.
And that was one of the things that, like I said, when we went downtown a week, 2 weeks ago, they really liked this
And
format.
this is-
They thought it was a lot easier to follow, so.
Any questions?
All right.
And everything on here is, just to clarify, the 5.5 million, it does not include IBMD, correct?
No, I did these included on there. It should be.
Or you use on the bond.
Should be nearly 6.4 million for the total allocation.
So total
Oh, I see,
allocation is
so the 468, okay, gotcha, sorry. Because the amendment 3 is at 4 points.
It's 4.7, and then last year's was 1.9, so that's why.
Okay.
Let's say this one.
Any other questions? Okay, now we'll have Kristen give us an update on the efficiencies, the project efficiencies. As you know, when Ernst & Young came on board in February, March, whatever, they did their baseline assessment report. Everybody knows it's the third report we've had. But they created, I think there were 9 project efficiencies. We have actively, as a team, been working to close a lot of those. And if you'll turn to, and I'm sorry the page numbers got messed up in this book, but we'll fix that next time. We got it right for the executive steering committee, but we missed it on this for some reason. But we'll get the page numbers correct for you. So if you turn to the page with the cube here, and then Kristen will give you an update on the deficiencies.
Okay, so we have a couple of items to see kind of our progress. You have the cube that's in your booklet, and then you have the detailed spreadsheet that shows what things we are closing. So at the last meeting, I reported that we closed 1 deficiency. Since that time, we closed 3 more. So deficiency 1 through 4 have been closed, and that's what this cube now reflects. So you'll see a lot more green in the areas that we have addressed. Last week, we closed an additional one, so you'll see in the August report that we will have closed a total of 5 deficiencies. We have a rigorous deadline based on the condition of our appropriation for this year to close the remaining 2, which are deficiencies 5 and 7. 5 is associated with how we're reporting our performance across the program, reporting our scheduled performance, reporting the performance at which we're spending the funds that we're being allocated. And then deficiency number 7 is associated with our schedule for getting that completed and starting to track, how we are, or if we're on target for realizing the benefits that we have outlined in the schedule.
And I want to clear one thing, I think there are 9 in all, you said close the remaining 2, but there's 2, we committed that we would have 7 completed by mid-September. And then the others, it's gonna take a little while longer for the organizational change management. So right now, Kristen has told me we're on track to have 7 completed by mid-September. So that's what I want to clear up.
Thank you again. So the report has been filtered to kind of show you the things that are still open. So you can see the things that we still have to address. And you can see kind of the actions that we're taking as well as the IBMD feedback each week as we make updates.
Talk about the order that we approached these, that was recommended.
Well, basically the deficiency numbering kind of puts them in order. So deficiency 1, which dealt with the human resource management component, was the greatest area that we need to focus on first. And then deficiency 9 is associated with organizational change management. And we are expected to be fully mature at this point with that. So that's why that's at that number. But they're ranked just by number alone in order of priority. Any questions?
I wanna know Kansas City.
A little bit. Yeah, finally could. Just a little. Thank you, Brad. So last week or last time we met, we talked a little bit about all the number of requirements and the different teams and all of that. So I wanted to start having each one of the senior, well, that's right, I forgot. We do have 3 senior BAs here now because it's our last meeting, this last week while I was away at conference. I don't know who did this. But Jessica was promoted to a senior business analyst and so was Kathy. So congratulations to them. So now I'm working even harder than I was before, so.
You mean that's possible?
But we want to have each one of them come up and give like an overview. You know that we have, five different teams. We're working on that, 5 different teams that are working on requirements validation. Each one of those teams, well, we're trying to get to that point. Each team has a team leader. They have a product owner because we use agile, methodology here. So there's a product owner who's responsible for the system, and each one of the team leads is responsible for, making sure everybody's there for the meetings and all of that. And there's like a huge amount of requirements that each team has to go through now, and now that we have them and validate them, refine them, and make sure all the linkage is there to all the statutes and rules and policies and all of that stuff. So, who wants to go first? Judy, you want to give your update first? Thank you. So she said, no, not really.
I'm starting to say, we're gonna go
We started meeting on August 11th. We've held for DL assurance 15 meetings to date. 7 for motorist maintenance. That's 3 that were pre-grooming, and then now they're getting into the actual grooming. We have stand-ups for DL at 8:45 a.m. for 15 minutes in D220. For motorist maintenance at 8:30 for 15 minutes, same room. We have grooming sessions from 9 to 11 Tuesday through Friday for DL issuance. And that's in B329. And for motorist maintenance in B264, we have Tuesdays and Thursdays for 2 hours from 2 to 4. So far for DL issuance, we've groomed 34 stories completed, 17 for motorist maintenance. We have 32 functional areas in this first increment for the deliverable. 25 belong to DL and 7 belong to motorist maintenance. Currently, we're working on customer summary for DL issuance, and that has 78 stories so far, and it keeps growing. And for motorist maintenance, we have 18 stories under ambulance search, which is the third functional area.
And how many, maybe I missed the total number of requirements for each?
The last I checked for DL issuance, there were 800 stories, 803 stories, and I think it's grown since then. And for motorist maintenance, there were 103, and that's already doubled.
And explain to them 2 things for me. The difference between your stand-ups and your regular meetings, and explain to them why it is possible, how it is possible for the requirements to change during this process.
So, during grooming, what we do is we go over the story and make sure that it's at the standard that a developer can read it and start developing from it or go from it. The number of stories changes because as we're going through these grooming sessions and the developers are in the room with us, they'll tell us, hey, we can't code that in one sprint. So we're gonna have to divide it so that it's small enough so that we can code it. And that's why it keeps growing. So there's like different things that go into it, like maybe we thought this story was gonna be create 1 page, and it turns out that I have to have a story for creating it, for displaying the information, and then for any background process that's going on. So that's why 1 story can turn into 3, sometimes 4 during the reading sessions.
What on the motorist maintenance side, are you, the stories you're writing are for new functionality, or are you going back and reviewing the previous work?
Most of the stories for motorist maintenance are regression testing stories, which means that because it's going from one, I guess the database is changing, so because it's changing, we're gonna have to retest all the things that are already on there. So we have 1 story for each of those things. And then, there's also stories for, user or, role renovation, just because the rules are changing as well. There are a couple of stories that are for new functionality, but they're not as big as those stories that are the regression testing and rule based.
So Terrence, in about 8 years when you get done, when you get done and
That's a vote, that's a vote.
are we gonna have, how many driver license systems are we gonna have?
Now, they're gonna disagree, I say, one.
Okay.
That's it.
That's the way.
I only ask, cause he and I had this discussion a
Conversation
long
about
time
Motorist.
ago when I was still in Motorist about,
Yes.
I never understood all these years why you had Fidless and you had DL maintenance in the old days.
Right.
You know, then we created Motorist maintenance and almost basically essentially replicated it. And I don't know why we did that, but anyway, then now we're going, it's like, we
Yes.
keep trying to keep these things together when there should just be one of them.
Right.
On the motor vehicle side, we never had two, frivolous was frivolous, and I never understood on the DL side why they had two.
Our way of fixing them, not duplicating the same functionality, is by getting rid of add modify and DL issuance. So Fitness has add modify right now, which is exactly the same thing. So we're not doing that over. So
Okay,
in the shell, they're gonna be two different modules, but they're gonna be used together. So I won't have to build an add modify functionality for
right,
Fitness. I'm just gonna direct them to Motorist.
so literally, as all of y'all know who are internal, you had a Fidless icon on your screen, and then if you wanted to go to Motorist maintenance, or back in the day, it was a completely different thing. So, yes,
Yes.
You're with all of that. What did you do with the direct communication? I may not be saying that right.
Oh, the
Color
application.
The
Right, remember when we
the
talked
color
about
ID.
FR and whether it should go,
Right.
and then David and.
I forgot how they.
It doesn't,
Color ID.
that's taking up time that we
Yeah.
don't have to
But we
do.
can figure it out, yeah.
You answered the,
Yeah.
we're gonna have one.
That's the plan.
So they keep hedging their bets, they don't say.
We
will have.
Hey, I'm on camera, that's.
You can log into one system.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good, that's good. Hey, that's a improvement over there.
I'll take it.
Thank you for saving me, Judy. We can talk after this.
Alright, FR, I'm gonna do FR first and then civilus and citation processing. My voice is hoarse and either getting sick or I yelled too much at a football game, so. FR, we started grooming August 19th. We've held 9 grooming sessions since then. We do our stand-ups Monday through Friday from 9:20 to 9:30 and D220. And we have our meetings Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and we did have them at 10 to 12, but we just changed it today, 9:30 to 12. We have a lot of user stories that are coming out that are gonna take some more time, and I don't want to get behind, so we even added a meeting this week, Friday and Monday, so we're gonna be spending a lot of quality time together.
And you're doing the insurance company verification fees and the clearances?
We're doing clearance and insurance right now. We've split it up, so that's the 2 sections that we're on now.
And Stephen, when I leave here today, I did finally, I know you tried a year ago and I tried as well, but I did finally meet with them about 2 weeks ago. And I plan to go up to, hopefully I can get it scheduled for next week, go up to Montgomery because they want me to see the online verification. So we're gonna take a trip there to see that system. But that's what we're working on.
We have 135 stories to groom, 6 functional areas in the project. And like I said, we're working on clearance and insurance right now. We have 14 stories in this functional area. We have 4 stories ready for estimate, 5 in progress, and 5 stories that we haven't started yet. So our deliverable is coming out, I think, on the 22nd, but we are on schedule to be on time.
And the ready for estimate, correct me if I'm wrong, that is where, of course, the stories to the point that developers can then
Yes.
look at it and give an estimate of how long they think it's gonna take.
For citation processing and SIDLIS, they started their grooming on August 18th. They've held 10 meetings to date. Their stand-ups are Monday through Friday, 9 to 9:15. And their grooming sessions are Tuesday through Thursday, Tuesday 3 to 5, Wednesday and Thursday are 2 to 4. They have 296 stories to groom. SIDLIS and citation processing has 220 total. SIDLIS 76, so I think that's supposed to be citation processing is 220, SIDLIS 76. Functional areas are 36 for citation processing and 11 for SIDLIS. And the functional areas that they're working on now for citation processing are commercial disqualification process, driving school completion process, and dropout prevention process. There's 27 functional areas, 23 they have completed, 6 are in progress, and 21 are pending. So,
All the processes you mentioned for citation were you said driving school,
yeah, driving school completion process, the dropout prevention process, and commercial disqualification.
I have a question, I'm not sure how well it fits with this, but thinking about driver school completion. At some point, when it becomes appropriate, the clerks would like to have a conversation, perhaps with this group, the board, and ask how to perhaps get a report of people who have taken driver improvement school, BDI, or what have you, because they don't always get it reported back from the customer directly, like, if I take it, I was just coming to the clerk and say, here's my proof that I actually went, because I swore to you I would. So then what happens when the clerk doesn't get that proof from the customer, they de-six the license. Yes, and so the clerks have been asking, isn't there some way, and we know it's years off, but isn't there some way that we could get a report from highway safety of who took it, because the driver's schools report to you? But maybe in this system somehow?
Actually, that's gonna come up here and somebody gives an update on what we could be doing as far as communications with other groups and there's actually, we're gonna address that.
Good.
And with your meeting that you just mentioned, so
Thank
if you give us a few minutes and we'll.
Absolutely.
No, that's
Would be
fine.
remiss if I did
No, I'm
not.
glad you brought it up.
well, that's
Represent
been,
my
that's needed to be fixed for years.
Yeah, we just need to correct the record.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question here. Judy, you wanna give yours?
Yes. Start with portal team started grooming on August 11th. Today we've had 15 meetings. The portal stand-up is at 9:45, Monday through Friday. The team meets for grooming sessions Tuesday through Thursdays from 10 to 12. To date, totally, we have a total number of 627 stories in portal, 47 functional areas. Currently, we're working on 4 functional areas that will actually are complete except for there's some common functionality that has to do with the PDPS, SIDLIS, SSA, and the fee count. And those rules and stories go across multiple areas. So that's the only thing that's holding up those areas from being completed. Currently, this week, they're working on address verification. On the renewal team, we started as well on August 11th. The renewal team has a total of 364 stories, 18 functional areas. In this first increment, we've been working on the creation of the renewal file for motor vehicles, mobile homes, parking permits, driver license, and the delinquent mobile home file. This week, the team is working on the renewal reports that support the creation of those files.
Now, the one thing, and I'm sure the things are going well, things that are not going so well. So, one issue that has been reported by Accenture, and if they had not, I would still bring it to the group, is something you need to be aware of, that we're struggling with, we're having an issue right now. Accenture has raised the risk of, the original plan was that we were going to have developers, which we do have in all of these meetings, because one thing that we learned from working on capture and from EFS, ETR, we upfront did all this requirement work, and then you go and the developers came in later and they didn't understand anything, and we were already you remember, we were struggling with getting people on board that could pass the criminal background check. We struggled with that for a while. And on top of that, we brought in developers. They were like, we don't understand this. They didn't understand our business at all. So we slipped people further behind them. We had FSETR and capture. Finally, pulled a resource from our team and some other folks, and we got on track. But so we thought, when we start doing Motorist Phase 1, the developers need to be there. The developers are there. They get the. That's why Jessica just said the stories are changing because they disagree with stuff. So you gotta, split things up so they can get them done in sprints. Our sprints are 3 weeks. That is a 3-week development period. So they have to split the work up so that they can get it done in that 3-week period. So if we have anything that is too large for them to get done in that 3-week period, that's what she's saying, is to split it up. Along with that, one of the other things that we found out from working on EFS and ETR was that we need to have the testers there as well so that they can start writing these test scripts, because the way we have done this in the past is that when we do those 3-week development sprints, it's not complete until testing comes back and says it's complete, it's done. So we wanted to have the testers in the room as well to start writing these test scripts. And the bureau chief here, Julie Baker, agrees with that totally. It's just that now we have a resource issue. She has people that are trying to finish up work on EFS and capture, but they're also trying to keep work going on Motorist Mod Phase 1. So that is an issue, a risk that Accenture has raised, but now they have converted. I think now it is documented as an issue on this project. I don't know, if we will see some recommendations from IBV, but that is something right now that we're trying to work on, trying to find a solution. We may even reach out to some other sources to try to get some help with testing different things, writing test scripts. So that is something that we've raised to the leadership of the agency, and we're trying to find a solution for that, because everyone's worked really hard on trying to turn this little cube to the right colors, and we don't want to take any steps backwards. So I just wanted to report that to the group, that is something that we're actively working on. You want to add anything?
The bureau chief has submitted a plan to basically triple the testing staff. So, we're gonna see where we can go with that. We may have to augment with contractors, so we're gonna be meeting to discuss that plan and see where we can go with that, whether we can do with FTEs. Obviously, we don't have the positions in-house, so we would have to take some other steps, but we may need to go to contractors or something like that, but we are gonna be meeting on that too.
Which contractors, I could see where we could use them to actually do the test, but for writing the scripts, you almost kind of have to have some knowledge of how somebody's going to work, or am I wrong?
Not really, because in the acceptance criteria, we state what we expect the outcome to be. And then there's also the business rules, so if it's somebody who's a trained tester,
Well, yeah.
they should be able to write the test cases from that.
I get you. But yeah, finding those people.
That's what we're looking for, right?
Well, now, I know this is a little off, it's on subject, but it's off subject. I had gotten several weeks back a plan, or request, I should say, from Julie and her people to reconfigure some of the space that they're in. But I understood that was for what they already had, and so now you're saying they're gonna have even more?
Well, I'm not sure, she just submitted that last week, so.
That's what I'm saying, if she just submitted that last week, then the thing that we're doing
It's
structurally to the building is already not even probably what you need.
probably.
We can talk later about whether we should stop it or not. I don't care, but I'm just saying, I already approved purchase order to start taking down walls and cutting walls and anyway, we can talk about that later. I did have a question though, on the SIDLA stuff that you're doing. I'm assuming we're writing it to the new 532.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
and then the PDPS thing, I guess, stays the same until we move to state to state. But if if you do 532, you should be close to what state to state is based off of.
Really? No, I did not know that.
Oh, that's close. They're not identical. They're not identical.
That's actually good news.
Am I saying that right? I mean, they
I think so, and then we were, Terrence and I had talked about having a meeting and I was gonna.
They've patterned state to state off of syphilis. But again, it is a little bit of a different animal because in the state to state world, you've got the real ID component, which you don't have in syphilis. So there's you can have a real ID compliant card and non-real. There's markers for real ID, which you don't have to deal with that in syphilis. Syphilis doesn't care whether you're real ID or not. Plus, you also have ID cards thrown into state to state, which you don't have in syphilis. So they're not identical, but they tried to make them as close as possible so that they would be easily to code for and all that.
Next, somebody's gonna give, it's not on the agenda, but we've added this, so, she's gonna update on the things that we're doing from a communication standpoint, website, focus groups, that sort of thing, so.
Yes. Let me switch tasks real quick here. And you ever had so many things open on your desktop at one time? It's hard to. So what we've done so far is we have gotten permission to go ahead and set up a standalone website for motorist maintenance. We are in the process of
Modernization.
Modernization. Did I say maintenance?
It's okay.
You're still within 3 weeks, B, but have you been here a month yet? So we'll overlook it right now.
Excuse me, for motorist modernization. And what this will do is it will offer one comprehensive page where you can find all the other sub-pages. Like right now you have the advisory board meeting and you have the partnernet site. And this will serve as one central location for all of those disparate pages to be co-located, at least links to them. So as part of that, we're also working on our logo, which we've submitted a couple of, one of the folks not here today, Kathleen Pro, designed a couple of different logos. We got together and did this a couple of weeks ago. And we've submitted those on. Those are with our communications office right now, and they're working on that with their graphics folks. Once we have the Motorist Modernization web page, the forward-facing, public-facing web page up, then we'll be able to start pulling in more of the attention from the public side. So what this is going to eventually entail is you folks working as the ambassadors of change for the changes that are coming up. And we're going to provide you with the information you need. Obviously, you already have enough information, but basically this will we'll be able to offer you the talking points on the different issues so that everybody can speak with a unified voice that's clear and consistent when dealing with the different stakeholder groups.
I think you should just use a picture of Terrence as the logo. A nice headshot. You know.
Yeah, we talked about it, and he's so modest, he said he kind of gave that the kibosh, but,
It's Superman.
Thanks a lot.
But I think Ed made the motion.
Oh, yeah.
and you get thrown in front of the bus even when you sit here, so. So, and that piece is coming. We've got our organizational change management person who just came on board today. And I will be able to meet him after this meeting. So I'm looking forward to that. But
Obviously, we've had a couple of different stakeholders that we've met with. One of which is the Department of State, with whom we're working on the online voter registration requirement. There's a new law that went into effect in May of this year. So between that issue, we're obviously very strong stakeholders because of the motor voter, cannot say that quickly together. But we had a discovery/kickoff meeting last month on the 19th, and it was basically just to figure out what our next steps were, where we can link in together, and how we can make motor voter and online registration work together as a unit. And then we did have a follow-up meeting on the 27th, a week later, and determined the 4 focus groups, which are, right now there are four focus groups, one for address. There's some issues that are different between the requirements for the online voting registration, and apparently for the HAVA Act, which I can't recall what.
Not the American Voting.
That's it. For the HAVA Act. So we've got the addresses, one focus group, verification, which is actually identity verification, which is a separate issue. The signatures, they want to make sure that they are capturing the most recent signature, obviously. And that may or may not be our signature that we have on file at HSMD. And then we have a technical focus group that will do all the lovely changes into VAs and the code, people who are doing the coding, the developers that want to do. So that's where we are with that, and we are, we'll be working closely, obviously, continue to work closely with them. We're in the process of setting the 3rd meeting date with them. We also met with FDLE, and the main thing that came out of that initial meeting was that we have some sheriff's offices who want to run an on-demand, real-time report for addresses that is specifically for them to use in their duties related to sex offenders, the sex offender registry. So we're working with them on that. And we're going to be setting a meeting for next week with FDLE. That's it.
And we also want to set up a focus group to address issues from the area as well. So we'll be reaching out to you to address the issues that you, like one of the issues you just mentioned. So we'll set it up, and somebody will probably get with you so that we can, and then we can figure out who needs to be in that meeting with testing, make sure we got everything covered. Any questions about the meetings with the Department of State, FDLE, Kathleen says FDLE, and not understanding the southern accents. All right, so next is all of your recommendations. I think we've had 2 executive steering committee meetings since your last meeting, because they wanted to make sure they made it through that entire list. So today, we're just going to recap some of the things that we've discussed with them and where they are on certain issues. There are some issues that we have to get a legal opinion on. There are some issues, I think there may have been 1 or 2 that maybe they disagreed with your recommendation. I can't remember, we'll go through it. I was out last week, so all this is on Kristen. She told me all this already. To know that she had it on, so she's got to remember everything that the executive steering committee stated. So if you turn to the last few pages here, like I said, the page numbers were messed up. So I think first up is renewal and portal. So Judy, you want to kind of walk through?
I think they're all over the place.
Okay,
Some
well,
are gender, and it's probably best to just go down the list. And then unless we
well, if we go down the list, start with this one, like one?
Yeah,
Okay.
when you said like renewal report, I'm just saying we're all mixed in, but never mind, go ahead.
ESC01, get it?
Thank you, Peter, thank you, thank you.
Uh,
And look who's speaking, Judy.
I'm just saying, there's your name on it. ESCO1, we're still waiting on a legal opinion as to whether or not, the email addresses are gonna be exempt from public record. So that's, we're still pending a legal opinion on that one. For ESCO2,
That's the one that we
I
have to.
think there were some questions, or, I don't know if it was raised by this board, it was from the ESC, they wanted to make some stats on,
Well, this could maybe raise the issue, Linda and Beth.
correct.
Right. But I think the issue there is, I think Judy's right, they wanted to know how many
Right.
individual appraisals, so, yeah. So,
So for the stats, in the last 6 months, there were 1,645 requests for other driver transcripts were processed. This type of request amounts to half of the record request processed monthly.
and those are from,
They're coming from whom?
yeah,
There's public record requests from people who are just, they're contacting VOR. Yes, VOR, and they're asking for other driver transcripts. So they do get about half of them are people who are requesting their own transcripts, and then the other half are.
So you took a sampling from the Bureau of Records,
Right.
Correct.
and they're getting 1,000 or whatever
Right.
a month
No, in the last 6 months, they've gotten 1,600, which is half of what.
for people requesting someone who's not their own.
Correct.
Okay. So we're just going to assume then that the percentage would be approximately the same for clerks and tax collectors based on that sampling, is that what we're doing?
Well, it's not the same out in the field because they're not allowed to request it out in the field. But as far as Bureau of Records, they issue just about the same for their own as for.
Well, right, so there's.
So we're gonna say, it's about the same. So we assume that if that's what we're getting here, we're probably gonna get the same out in the field.
Is that same?
Judy, this,
Are you asking, is this common, is the executive steering committee member of the
Yeah,
ESC?
yes, it is.
Are they asking the tax collectors and clerks to do a survey to let you know?
No, they just asked us to
Okay.
pull the stats from
Alright.
Bureau of Records.
Okay. And it shows what was sold via the tax collectors and the clerks?
They don't currently, well, at least not the tax collector, they don't currently sell their driver transcripts.
So
But they're not gonna make a
Right.
decision on this until they see this periodically.
So tax collectors
we
are
don't-
only selling
even
the
though it-
driver records to people,
Right, right.
people get their own record.
Correct. So, okay, I guess I'm not understanding the comments, that it looks like they're asking
It's-
us to do something.
No,
or get
no,
out of
they're
number.
still mulling it over
Okay.
as part of, they're
Okay.
making a decision, they wanted to know what the current stats are. So it's still under review by ESC. Okay, and that was for ESC 203.
What did you tell them on the bulk question?
I was not in the meeting and I don't know if they were, I don't think they, because I
it
wasn't
was the
there.
number,
Huh?
remember? It was the number of transactions, did we say anything over, was it 20?
20.
That's.
Oh,
20.
Do you have additional information that you wanted to
Yeah,
provide?
No, but I mean, if you want us to survey, and we can ask, how many have you sold in the last year? Because they know how many, because they remit the rest of the money to y'all. So I know they can go back and look. And then if the second question is, do you care? If, well, because for them it's a policy issue of giving away money,
Actually,
which is kind of what the tax collector was saying too.
I made a note to myself during that meeting, and they do want to know how many are sold by the clerk of courts. I just haven't found a person to reach out to, but
Yeah, that's what we do, is we just do a survey monkey and tell them to fill it in and send it in. It'd really be about 2
yeah,
questions.
we
So
can.
let's-
Because I need to address the policy aspect.
But are you
So-
asking how many they sold,
Yeah. that's what
or are you also asking, of the total that you sold, how many did you sell to someone who wasn't their own?
They're not, well, they can't sell to anybody that's not their own.
It's only for the
You never
board,
had to do it either.
Do
Just
we have
making sure.
record of
who sold because of the funds remitted?
Yes.
Because they should have
Would
that.
that be an implication of what
That
you're
means we should,
You would not know, but I can get the number from the Department of Revenue and divide. oh, by 6/25, I mean, it's really not
Now,
that
see, if we
hard.
took it, the revenue we're getting is gonna have 3-year and 7-year co-mingled, right?
It's gonna be lumped together, you're gonna get it
Right. I'm gonna get that we got $100 from them, but I'm not gonna know how many of those, with 3-year records or 7-year records, the price is different, I wouldn't know what my advisor would use.
It's easier.
If you do it by the 6/25, you're right, it would give you a better.
I can do that and get, but for us, more the second question is the policy issue. So that we have an opinion from our members.
About whether you want to sell
Whether
them
do we
to
want
someone
to
who is
have-
not their own.
Right, and what we have said, I think consistently in this meeting is we would like to at least have the opportunity to do so, have the equal opportunity as a tax, because some of our clerks are gonna be like the small county tax collectors, they're gonna say, no way, no how, I don't wanna do it. You're gonna have clerks in bigger counties who say, I don't care, I'll sell 50 if I can make the money. 50 times 6 isn't that much, but right now they're not willing to give up any, if there's a potential.
So are we all in agreement, or the advisory board, you all in agreement that we need to have that, reach out, do a survey and bring back or send us the stats? And then, Kathleen, can you jot that down so we don't forget as a to-do item for, so you're going to get those numbers for us and bring it back?
And yes, I'm fine with that, my only comment to you is, you'll make sure that when the survey goes out, we're not catching excitable people, we'll not,
No, it's simply just how many have you sold in the last
we're just gonna keep it calm. Don't get them stirred up if they think that, oh my God, highway safety's gonna do what? No, we're just trying to ask a question.
You're not really on their radar screen right now, just no offense.
Very good, we don't wanna be, we don't wanna be.
Okay, and you want like calendar year? You want like a 12-month look?
Yeah, let's say 14-15 fiscal year.
State, you're a good state.
State.
They were on
State.
guidance, that's okay.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, I'll just.
1 year.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Fix it.
I'll give them dates. I'll have it for, I should have it for the next meeting.
Okay.
CO4 was a sinless one. An issue was raised concerning commercial learner's permits being issued through central issuance. If the customer would leave without a document, it's anticipated that the customer will have a paper document receipt. They're gonna have like a paper, temporary to use until they get their permit in the mail, so they get their driver's license in the mail. So they will leave the office with something.
But also the other note there is that,
We talked about other
yeah, I
states.
think they're gonna determine, see how this
What other states do.
So for ESC 05, the request to use the customer's email address provided during the deal issuance transaction was raised. Both tax collector and deal officers already collect this information. The tax collector would like to use the email address to send out renewal notices or reminders to customers in their counties. And this one is related to the ESC 01, and the legal opinion is pending on that one. ESC 06. An issue was raised concerning the ability to request another driver's transcript online. The tax collector would like the functionality made available in the issuing system with the ability to auto-redact personal information.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, we were supposed to come back to you guys.
Well, we went back and couldn't really hear on the meeting minutes. They think that at some point that Linda and that you all said no because of the whole issue of redaction and everything, that you no longer wanted this.
And collecting information, and requested it.
Right. Is that true? Did I miss, was I the only person that heard that correctly?
We would.
Is that, or was that just
Functionality.
Linda?
I'm
She's not.
thinking it was just her because it's about functionality in
Yeah.
the system.
It was in, it was related to DL 07 in the decision document, which was report information of the person requesting transcript, so it's not requested by the record holder. And, I think the conversation was about having to sit there and say, well, sir, what's your name, or not
having to get it from that customer's record directly, so I would have to, if Judy came in and she asked for somebody else's record, I would have to go to her record instead of that person whose record she's requesting. So it's a matter of we wanna collect that information or we wanna do it that way where you're going into the customer who's requesting the information.
But I didn't think you could ask someone who they are if it's public records request.
That's here in-house, because that's the only place to do it, but what about in the field? Because if we're gonna add it in the field, I mean, I don't know. But we're not really supposed to be going,
I thought
that's
the
what I'm
public,
gonna do
I
it.
was supposed to say, I thought the public records law of Damaris was, if someone comes in and requests a public record, you can't really ask them who they are or why they're asking. So that's- So anybody, so someone could come ask for my driving record, they don't have to tell you who they are. Now they have to pay a fee, but
I thought the reason we don't do it in the field is because I'm not supposed to be going into somebody else's record if that person is not standing in front of me. So, right.
okay, I see what you're saying.
We
I see
can't
what
give
you're
out
saying.
their information.
You're requiring on the
On the record
record
statute
statute.
change, which was what? I think that's kind of what the note says. That's
The
what
other
we
possibility that we talked about during our ESC meeting was building the functionality outside of inquiring on a record. So as a menu option, I have record request or something like that, and then I would go in there and just type in the record that you want, that DL number. And if you have the DL number, then what I would do is I would type it in, it would auto redact all the other information and only leave you the DL number and the
Which is
record.
the way
Right.
some of them work, I mean, in both Bureau of Records, if they type.
But I shouldn't allow name, date of birth, I mean, it depends on what.
They get back
Yeah,
what they
yeah,
give, basically.
Right, you get back what you give, but, alright, back to the question.
So this was actually, I guess, a question for Linda. I guess you all thought that Linda pulled back on this and said,
No, none, oh yeah, Linda was the one that
It
said.
does get really complicated.
When we started talking about having to capture that information, because we would be doing an inquiry into the customer's record.
Which also becomes public record.
Right.
The inquiry itself.
Right.
As we learned with David. So we might need to wait, let.
Yeah, we'll follow
comment on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do know that they would like the same kind of redaction, all the redaction available that we have to the department.
Mhm.
We do know that.
Yeah, cause right now we're doing manual redactions, right, so I think building that outside functionality would probably take care of that, cause if you go into that system.
I mean, the system will redact it, it depends on how you request it. You have to request it to be redacted.
Right.
It's part of the call to the web service.
Okay. The next one is, same thing, but in regards to FCCC, would like the authority to issue another driver's transcript in their offices, and the ESC agreed to allow this if it's supported by legal. So there's still additional, discussion going on in regards to that.
I think all of this requires legislative change, doesn't it? It doesn't know statutes, and then when it goes to their, I mean, well, how do you get someone else's,
No, you can redact.
not redact, just request?
Anybody can redact, anybody can request.
just have to do it.
Because citation information and crashes, those are public.
This is the deal with.
Right, so the way we do it now in the Bureau of Records is they manually, if you give Bureau of Records Ed's name, date of birth, let's say that's all you have. They will redact the social, they'll redact the address, they'll redact the DL number, they'll only give you back what you have, right, but then, you see, all the conviction information is public record, none of that is public record.
I think it's our highway safety agreement that
Now
we
that may be-
only to issue the.
Correct, there's some system limitations and other, right, but it's not statutory, it's other reasons why.
And if an employer wants to know about someone's driving record, they could come to one of our offices and get that record.
Not every tax
Yeah.
collector's office.
Only because it's a system limitation, not because it's a legal limitation. legally they're entitled to get it, but the field office can't just do it. Because we print transcripts and deal maintenance and bill notice maintenance and all that stuff.
ESC 08, the department would like to encourage address compliance by reducing or eliminating replacement fees for customers who need to change their address to comply with statute 322.19, change of address or name within 10 days. And the ESC determined that the residential address would incur a charge and issuance of a new card. Customers would be allowed to change their mailing address and the credential will not be required.
Meaning residential. So we have to do, if you're gonna do a residential address change, it has to be within issuance. You can only change your mailing address as a standalone.
And I think they're gonna address this as something separate, because it's not a system requirement, but they're gonna look into it.
So we have a typo there, it's ESC.
It should be residential address,
The first one
and
they
also
said
instead of
residential.
off,
That's
it's
the
on.
second one.
Residential address requires would incur a charge and issuance of a new card, true. Customers would be allowed to change their mailing.
They-
A new credential will not be required, which is also true.
No, actually, I think that's right.
It is right, because
Yeah,
if you
it's
change
just-
their mailing and they don't have to get a new card.
The department agrees that fees are too high, legislative changes are required, also for mailing address changes, the customer would have to answer security questions, that's all mine said. I think all that's true.
No, it's the ESC determined that residential address changes would incur a charge and issuance of a new card to update the mailing. The issuance of a new card isn't part of the,
Mine doesn't say that.
okay.
It says customers would be allowed to change their
Yeah.
mailing address and new credential will not be required, that's correct.
That's correct.
You don't need a new.
Mine must be different than
Oh,
yours,
so
mine
there's
doesn't say
different
that.
versions then, okay.
Mine has a period at the word new
Well,
card.
they corrected it then, okay. This is one.
Yours is
Raise
different.
and kind of,
Yeah,
So
it's
we're
just,
off.
It's
Oh,
off
yeah,
instead of
off
off,
instead
but
of, yeah.
otherwise, yeah.
yeah, it's
Oh.
Let's see here.
That would change that.
ESC 09, the advisory board, does not recommend allowing subscription monitoring on elderly drivers. The ESC is still considering this, however, they support this with parental consent.
Who's our, who are older than the older than
Right, that,
Who are the
The parents, so if I have an elderly parent and I wanna subscribe to monitoring,
those?
theirs is
Very good.
recommended, yes,
so the elderly person has to consent to be subscribed to.
yes.
If you remember, Ms. Roby was quite vocal
I'm sorry,
about this. Ms. Roby was quite vocal.
Yes, I was.
yes.
No, I remember.
They spent a great deal of time talking about this. And they kept going, who was it Deb from? I said, Deb Roby, R-O-B.
But no, it was a good discussion, I like those good spirited debates.
But yeah, the decision there is that you have to give consent, but you said, we still have the things, they're still.
They're still considering it, they want to.
Yeah, but, well, Deb, now, the advisory board comments block is blank, you could still shove something in there. All we said was we didn't like it.
Yes.
But we didn't tell them all.
ESC 10, when downgrading from a CDL or Class C license, why do we create the Class C or ID as an original issuance? There was discussion as to whether these can be done as a renewal instead of an original. The advisory board could not reach a decision, so it was tabled. I'm not sure any comments from the executive steering committee.
Yeah, since you all were still thinking about it, they didn't really dive into that one too much.
So you wanna- I
Why we
mean,
tabled it,
we kept discussing and discussing, we could never, we decided to move on. Do we want to?
how's it written now? What are your?
Oh, That's what we need to do, so parents will see Jessica.
Yeah, that's what we which I think was a mistake.
It's because of the real ID, because you've got, if you're going DL to ID card, you've gotta cancel one out to go to the ID card. But going CDL to a DL should just be a replacement with a downgrade. Because we do that with somebody who's got a disqualification. We downgrade them. We do it right now, and we don't charge to downgrade. With this
For disqualifications,
disqualification,
you don't.
we don't charge to
Voluntary, you
downgrade.
would.
Right. So,
But are they
On the
labeled
DL.
originals?
Pardon?
Are they labeled originals?
no, not when we downgrade because of the
think so.
CDL disqualification. It's a replacement.
An ID card has to be.
It's just gotta be the ID card going,
Because it
driver
really is an
license,
original ID.
card. Because it is, because one cancels the other out. But when we go back to a DL,
Right, they could have had an ID card before.
Well, yes, you're right, they could. But still, whether you call it an original or a replacement or a renewal or some other name, you're still gonna have to do this whole canceling thing
Right.
for real ID, because you can't hold both at the same time.
Right.
So you still gotta cancel regardless of what you call it. And if they've never had an ID card before in their history, I don't know why you wouldn't call it an original. Now, if they did, say back when they had a ID card, then they got the Class E, then they upgraded to a CDL, and then they dropped back to an ID card. Now, if you wanna call it something different in that scenario,
as long as
Okay,
it had,
they
as long as
can't.
that ID card hadn't expired yet.
right, if it hasn't expired, I don't know what, and I don't remember that Linda cared about that part. I
Because
thought
we
it was
could
more
put a
about the whole
cancellation on it.
cancellation thing.
Yeah, the cancellation part is separate from what we call it. We can cancel
Agreed.
it.
Right.
Agreed,
So-
and the cancellation's a federal issue we can't change,
Correct.
so. And the 625 is gonna be the same way that's called an original or a replacement.
Right.
Now. Okay, was this her issue? So let's say I had Class E, I complied with Real ID. I scanned my documents, I showed my birth certificate, social security card. I upgraded to Class CDL. Then I got a revocation, not a disqualification, let's say I got a revocation. I have to drop back down to ID card, but I never had one. Are we making them scan the documents over again? Because they're already in there with the DL.
What's your real ID compliant?
Well, I agree with you.
No,
That's the way it should work, but are we doing it?
no, not unless they're non-immigrant, and then we,
Well,
we
yeah,
have to
that's
see the
a big
documents on
difference.
any
Well, then I don't
transaction.
remember,
Yeah.
well then, trying to think of what
I think the
issue she
issue
raised
is
last
more
time.
But if I had,
Right.
let's say I had an ID card and it was gonna expire in 2017, and I went to a CDL license or a Class E license. My ID card cancels out, and now I get a revocation on my license. Now I wanna go back to an ID card, it goes back to an original ID card. Because instead of just canceling it and keeping the expiration, when we went to Real ID, we changed it and it
But we're not
pretty
making them
much,
scan the documents over,
no,
but we're just still calling it an original.
I think the concern is that the original, what that does is it overrides the date of the true original issue.
That's what it was.
History.
Because yes, that's what it was, because then people complain, their insurance company dings, that's what it was.
Right.
The insurance, and that's true, it happened, the insurance company dings them for not having they can't show 3 years of driving. Insurance companies treat them like a new driver when they've really been driving for years and it raises their rates, that's what it was.
But if you go from an E
You've
to
gotta
a
have the true, and that's actually only on the DL. The true original issue date has to stay the same for the DL side for insurance purposes. That's what it is.
But if you go from an E to a CDL, it's gonna be an original, anytime you're upgrading, it is an original.
But do we still not retain the true original?
Yeah,
You could always go into the transcript, I mean, we used to be able to find it in
On
the
the
transcript.
transcript, yes, on the
Find the original
transcript, there
date,
used to be two fields, more than one, and you
Show the
had,
original date,
and it was original, it was called something.
original Florida issuance date.
Something. and it was its own date.
Why,
That's the one you need, that's what it was, that's what she was saying, and she's correct.
why can't we retain all three of those dates? Why can't I retain your original ID date, your original Class E, as well as your original CDL, and then we don't have
Yes.
this?
The only time we wouldn't retain it was after it's been 18 months expired and then.
Right, and truthfully, we do have all those dates in there somewhere, you just have to be able to read the transcript to figure it out. We need a way to dumb it down so that we've got at least one in there that says, you started driving here when you were 16, because that was the issue for being able to show proof that you've been driving for a long time, you get better insurance rates. So I agree with you, Judy, but you've got to display it in such a way that when they're reading the transcript, that they can key in on that one, because that's really the one they want to know.
Do you all have recommendations for this one now, that we can take to them?
And do what we just
I
said.
think that
Which,
is
can we repeat it?
reports.
Well, but do we still wanna call it an original or something, even besides the dates? Our issue was just that it wasn't consistent across other thought patterns in specifically as well as in motor vehicles. You had one as a replacement, or, we never go back to this thing called an original again, when you've already had it before.
Technically, it's really a renewal, even though it's been expired for a long time.
I think as long as you it's just me, as long as you can retain the true original, like you said, original ID card, Class C and CDL, you knows what those three dates are, and change the rest of them to renewals and replacements. Is there any reason to not?
A renewal, because if you don't go back to original, then people are always gonna be paying for late renewals. If they let it lapse more than a year, they're gonna be paying more than they would if you went back to an original date, because they're gonna be paying their renewal plus the
But that
late
can be
fee.
said, but that can be said in the business
Business
rules.
rules, I can always charge you your late fee, cause I know whether you renewed on time or not.
Right.
So the
But
business
how
rule,
long, for how long are you gonna let that sit there?
so for the business rule, we would just say that after 12 months of being expired, then the renewal is not gonna charge you a late fee. So it would just be something in the back end that we would have to write to make sure that it doesn't make you select original, but it still doesn't charge you the late fee after you've been expired for 12 months.
So to say it another way, we're only charging the late fee from day one of being late through day 365, but on 366th day, I'm not gonna charge it.
Although, I think we need to be careful,
Yeah,
because there's changes to the CDL requirements now, where if you go 12 months and you haven't taken action with your CDL, you've gotta start your testing all over again. So, and it's gotta revert back to an original, so I think we probably need to look at all
But
the.
then you have to call an original to do that, I still know what your testing
call it
requirements are. I don't have to call you an original to know that you need to take your test again or do whatever it is that's required. All of that can still be stated in the rules. We're just talking about.
Maybe we need to come
Well,
up
maybe
with a
we
better
rename
name.
the other one, maybe we rename the other one to first Florida
First-time
Class E.
issuance.
Yeah, and first Florida CDL. And then you can call these others, so instead of renaming that one, rename the other one.
Right,
Rename the true, what I had called the true original earlier,
first time issue.
first Florida Class E, first Florida CDL. Then you could still, if you wanted to, as long as we document whatever we do, so that those who come after us know what we've done, you could probably make both things work. I do know that the insurance is an issue, so you've got to have that first one.
Also, there's an
That's
issue with
a
that.
good point too.
Yeah.
So maybe we rename the other
Or
one.
just make sure we retain the historical, original Florida issuance information.
So the other thing that I'm hearing is you're saying after 12 months, if I, for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe I was locked up for a year or something, and my license expired during that.
And that happens.
During that time, if I'm 11 months expired, it's better for me to wait another month
Right.
and then here because it's gonna be cheaper than if I come in now within 11 months, you're gonna charge me the late fee, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't, why wait, I don't know, that's kind of.
Because a renewal is defined as within you have within 12 months of the expiration, you have 364 days from your expiration to renew. And once you go beyond that, then it becomes an original
I
again.
think part
You
of
don't have to retest, except now with the new CDL
But you used
requirements,
to.
you will.
Well, and see, okay, it's a history thing, Judy, and
You
you're
used to
right.
have to retest.
It makes no sense, I agree with you, but I'll tell you why it is that way. First of all, the late fee used to be $1,
Yes.
okay? And back when it was $1, way back when you renewed, we made you take the science test,
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
remember?
It was,
Yes,
yeah.
if you had to
The penalty, quote unquote, laugh, was that you paid the $1 and you had to take an exam.
Okay.
Over the years, this has morphed.
And if you wanted to waive the dollar fee, you could take all of the tests and we waive that dollar fee.
But all that went away. Now the late fee is $15. And we got rid of the exam because it was a pain in the butt and it was stupid because the only one we made them take was the road signs.
Unless they didn't want to pay their dollar.
So you're right. There was a time when it made sense that
Everybody.
after 12 months we treated you as an original, and the way we treated you that way was, Mr. Boyles, you have to pay another $1, and Mr. Boyles, you have to take the test over again. But we got rid of the test because it was actually more punishment on dense people than it was the customer. And the $1 got changed to 15, and now when you say it the way she just did, it does sound odd. That the penalty for being more than 12 months late is you now don't have to pay the $15 late fee. I never heard it that way till today. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
I know, I think I lobbied for both of those changes.
It made sense at the time.
That's why I remember, because I remember doing it, we took out the exam and we changed the late fee. I don't know, I hear you, but I don't know.
Is there anything that is,
But are we doing it that way?
are there, yeah, that's how we're doing it right now, but do we wanna keep waiving the $15 after 12 months, or?
Well, if you come in and say you're getting an original, then how can you be charged a late fee?
You're not on an original.
So that's what we said, don't
That's
call
what
it
I
an
said.
original and charge them a
It's
late
always
fee.
called that. Is there any advantage to someone saying, I have original now, not a renewal? It's almost like a disadvantage, isn't it? They've had a license for a long time and then it shows up as a.
On the insurance side, it is a disadvantage,
So
right?
that is disadvantage.
Which is what Linda was trying to prevent
Right.
at the last meeting, and she's right, we do need to fix that issue without screwing up something else in the process. That's why maybe we just change the name to Original Florida or First Time Florida Class E and First Time Florida CDL. And if we need to keep calling these others originals, then whatever, but. Would it be better at this point for your group, to you, Jessica, have y'all talked about this in your meetings on the DL issue?
There's been discussion about the original date, but I don't think we've gotten there yet. We're not. I think that's something that's coming up in the next couple of meetings, but it's gonna affect our determined eligibility stories where we say, what are we gonna show the examiner as being?
So that's what I'm saying, would it be better to just let them ferret this out
We've talked about it
and
before.
come back and say, we think y'all should do this? Cause we could sit here and turn this.
I said, we talked about it in Porter because we were trying to write the business rules for it, because if we're saying this person is here to do a renewal and we now see that it's been more than a year, we're gonna tell them you're not eligible for renewal, and then, so that's how we got to
So you're
discussing
stuck in
it.
it too.
Yeah. It makes sense to me, a non-driver's license person, to say, why are we calling this an original again, but we,
Right.
So, is that
I
your
think from
recommendation?
the I don't mean to speak for the group, but we all now remember, her issue was the insurance, showing longevity in driving so that you can get your discounts. That is a true issue. I remember in customer service in the 1990s, people would call up here and I'd have to go fish, microfish, to find the original, because somehow the original issuance date had gotten dropped off the transcript. So as long as y'all can figure out a way to fix her issue
which is the only real issue that this advisory board actually brought up. As long as Deb's happy after that, I don't think the advisory board cares. I mean, seriously, that was the only issue Linda brought up, which we agree with. So beyond that, you, the experts, as far as how to make the system work, as long as you can make it work to accommodate that issue that Linda raised, but still not screw other stuff up in the process, then I don't know that the advisory board needs to get into that level of weeds.
What's my profession?
We'll show you, we'll take you to show you.
Right, so members from Portal and DLH was, you all will probably have to join a smaller subset of your teams and come up with whatever we're gonna do for this one, and then we'll still bring it back.
I think before I go into those meetings, which we're supposed to start next week, I wanna know if it's okay, because if I can give them this answer, I think it'll make it easier for them to come to a decision on, whether we wanna keep waiving their fee after the 12 months. Or do you think it's okay to charge them the $15 all the way through the 18 months before purchase?
We need to write it for
That's gonna take a fee change, that's gonna be some statute, isn't it?
the late fees and statute, but I don't think the late fee, it doesn't speak to 12 versus 18. And the only reason 18 comes into play is because it's a record retention issue.
I'm trying to think if there's anything in administrative code.
Well, I think the late fee is stated, it was 1 day after the expiration date.
Right.
When
As long as
it's
it's
due.
not on
But it doesn't have a back end.
There's no back
There's
end.
no back end, right. So I think.
So if we call it a renewal, we should be able to charge for it. It's only because we were now calling it an original that the late fee didn't come into play.
Well, and maybe we need to look at it from another direction. Let's check with Maureen and find out why the historical information is dropping off the record. That may be the problem right there. Why are we losing that historical information
But the first time.
the first time?
Jessica, that is your action. You're gonna do it for me. And
I'll set the deal for Ruby and Maureen. I'll you two.
Okay, ESC 11, advisory board decided that the replacement fee should be paid when the customer elects to downgrade. The ESC agreed except for the case when it's a disqualification. So when it's a voluntary downgrade that is not the result of a disqualification, we will charge the fee.
That is the only, because it's disqualification, it's not voluntary. Right.
ESC 12, should portal be available in languages other than Spanish and English? Consider future expansion when resources become available. The advisory board recommends 2 languages, Spanish and English. The ESC agreed to focus on English and Spanish, however, the team is tasked to determine cost of other languages.
in that last sentence, like,
Yes, and I might can help you on that. We're in the process of getting a contract in place with a translator. So if you were.
a contract that's what?
We're in the process of getting a contract signed between an agency and a translation service, almost in a blanket format. So in other words, you'll be able to say, here, translate this, here, translate this, almost like a blanket purchase order, but with a translation service. And we're gonna start with the handbook, and then the questions. No, this would just be for print primarily, but you could take a website content and say, here, translate these. So, because you said on here, team is tasked to determine costs, and I'm saying, whatever you were doing, you can
Okay.
stop. Because I think we already have that, or will have that covered with the contract that we're trying to sign now. Because we're leaving it open-ended, it would be like I said, a blanket. Because I know communication said, well, what about posters and flyers and brochures, and so we're trying to get it such that we can just put them out and do it like a blanket purchase order.
And that was actually the sentence that dropped off. They advised us to check it into any automated tools that can translate automatically, so that's what we were talking about. That was the other piece of it.
Okay, so ESC 13, the system should recognize third-party payment types so that the reports can display actual payment types instead of TC other. And the ESC agrees with the advisory board recommendation, which was what we talked about, having TC cash, TC credit card. So, we're okay with that. ESC 14, move the motor voter to the beginning of the application process. And we didn't come to a conclusion the last meeting that we had, but I think with the rearrangement of some of the pages that we've done in deal issuance, it kind of takes care of that because we'll ask the question in a way that it makes sense in the flow, so that it's not, all the way towards the end, but it's not at the very beginning because there's other things that we need to capture at the beginning.
So that we can close that with.
I think as long as the advisory board is okay with that.
Hearing no objection, I would move on. That's the way you do that. Hearing no objection, thank you.
She did. I thought they're good. They like what they heard. ESC 15. Screening questions regarding conviction should not be retrieved by fitness from the online application. This was brought up because of a question we had on the other decision document. And I think there was a misunderstanding because we said regarding conviction, but there aren't any conviction questions on the online application. It's a question about being a judge mentally incompetent. So that's a question that we asked on our DL application, and because it's in that application, it also, when you answered it in fitness or in the online application, it automatically transfers it to the screening question and the judge question for motor voter. It just transfers the information, so it selects the same, which is not necessarily what it's supposed to be doing because one is in regards to driving and the other one is in regards to voting. So I think we're fixing that in the new system because we're gonna pre-fill that information from the application, but because we're gonna give them both options in the very beginning. So we're gonna say in regards to driving, yes or no, and in regards to voting, yes or no. So based on their answer, that'll be filled out in the motor voter application. The only other thing that comes into play here is the online application, which I think we've had a lot of discussions to say that we don't really need it, but we were waiting on Linda's response to whether the tax collector wants to. So once we know that, I think we can close this one. And then the last one is ESE 16. Email address should be verified so that bad email addresses cannot be entered. And what we talked about in the ESC meeting was that we're gonna look into having some kind of email validation, and it might be, just some service that gets called to make sure that it's correct.
So I think we're gonna try to have these little booklets each time, so you can go days. I think April, we were trying to figure out a way to make this handy. Because why don't you do like you did your PMP, that movie, and you put holes in it so you can stick to the binders, keep up with them. And have little things back here, so have notes if you want to, so stay with the book of that meeting. And next time we'll get the page numbers right, and so you can say what page number, but are there any other questions? Any? Oh, there were some that were on there that we did not,
There's some new ones, and I thought there's some that,
So you get stats on some of the stuff.
can we just, alright, so we have, what, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Can we talk about, can we just talk about the new ones, and then the next meeting we'll go over that? So I thought they were all transferred, I'm sorry. What are the new ones? Do you know what all the new ones?
which ones my team added. New, question came about, when we were looking into the fees and the whole, disabled veterans. And I think right now they're not charged for anything, and the question was raised about should the agency propose legislation to change to exclude the waiver of a DUI reinstatement fee, even if the driver is 100% disabled. So I think because of where those fees
Okay,
are.
what page are you on?
Oh, it's new and it's on page 11, I'm sorry, portal 20. And the comment was the intent to exclude veterans from DUIs as well? And I think at the time, I guess because of the statute, it refers to all fees in this section, is that technically what in that section?
Yes, I think you should change this section. I don't think that's what they ever meant. I do not believe that's what the legislature ever meant.
Yeah, but they are exempt from.
I know.
So is that something we want to recommend a change of statute for?
Well, the recommendation I'm assuming you were talking about would be, we would, the only, to say it in English, the only fees then that would be waived are issuance fees, not reinstatement.
Yeah, and I'm not, right now, they're all kind of lumped in there.
No, I know, but I do not believe that's what the legislature meant.
Intended.
No, I absolutely don't believe that. I mean, I could be
Wrong.
it's fine, but, this says DUI,
But it would have to be all sanctions.
but I would think it would be all sanctions, not just DUI.
I don't think that's the one that goes to the blue part, or just another.
Well, right. And I hear you,
Yeah,
the DUI gives you heartburn, but I could have, a DUI and 2 driving with while license suspended and have an HTO, that gives me just as much heartburn. So. You got refusals. So when they say DUI, are they talking literal DUI or any alcohol related things?
I think that one just stood out sometime when we were trying to review what these were.
And I think they're exempt from all reinstatement.
And right now, it's, yes, it says maybe something, I don't know, if it's because it was in a different section.
Right, that's why.
That's why.
It says all fees in this chapter.
Right.
322 is the DUI, but the FR reinstatement fees in 324.
Correct.
That's another reason it tells you that's not what the legislature intended. Because then the other D6 reinstatement fees is in 318 and 316.
They're not.
So, the answer is yes.
And then, 20, mailing and residential addresses. Should out-of-country addresses be allowed for mailing, residential, and a ship to address in my DMV or the field? So in the field, I mean in the offices. Currently, out-of-country is not allowed for residential and mailing addresses in virtual office or fitness.
We have to handle that.
It's a point where you were in the process, and it's no, yeah, or something like that.
I guess I'd like to know.
But the whole idea is to get the residential address, so if you're out of the country, then how can you be a resident of Florida?
Military is the only one. Besides that, I agree with you, there shouldn't be.
So if you people are just, without country, Kathy's mom actually lived out of country in Mexico for a while, she's
Students.
yeah.
So we don't, but I thought there was an issue about these folks that live elsewhere.
They retain their
They're
US
out of the country.
citizenship, but
There is an issue, but it's not so much with the out of country people, it's more of the thing with the out of state people. But the out of country people are different because if they're here more than 180 days a year, even though they're not here the other half of the year, they're still technically residents. And so they may not have their own address, they may stay with friends and relatives while they're here, but they're still maintaining residence.
So there's some differentiation between out of state and out of country.
Yeah, I think we should do it because we're doing it right now. It errors out and all these are handled by processing and issuance, but we would have to set up a different fee structure because it costs us more. So I don't think we could, put that under the regular mailing. I think we'd have to have enough charge if, obviously not for APOs and FPOs, but, for foreign mailing. Whether it's a, flat rate.
are we gonna require anyone to show us anything on the residential side? Because I'm thinking about real ID, so,
We don't now when they go online.
no, I know we don't now online, but this is for the office. Well, that's remote.
And is this gonna exclude those that have vehicles, because I thought right now, except for the military exception, for a motor vehicle registration, it has to be a Florida address. It's not even out of state, it has to be Florida. Or, in motor vehicles. And once we go to this one customer,
Why is,
I think it's because of insurance, because we're required to have some.
well, we exempted the military from having
Right,
a carrier,
except the military, but.
but only military, only military is the only ones who got exempted from PIP if they live out of state.
Enter your address. To enable audio.
Should we go over these things?
Okay. So it's just what you're thinking about, then
So like the rest,
We will, I think what we need to do is, make sure there's no stuff with this, and we'll go over these next meeting, but also add like a date column here so we can easily tell which ones are due and which ones are not due, and then make sure that also it's double document. So we'll make sure we do that, make sure which ones are due by date, so we can refer to the date section. So. All right, any other questions? Next meeting is October 13th, I believe, is the second Tuesday. So. Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you.